elderly woman, not the young white grocer, and her sentence was death. Although much has been written about the South in general, and Southern Jim Crow in particular, the system of white supremacy that prevailed between the late 19th and mid-20th century is ancient history for the current generation. They may recognize the names Rosa Parks and Fred Shuttlesworth and know something about lynching, but they likely have little sense of the quotidian violence that shaped routine experiences like grocery shopping and tied the nation's legal institutions to its racial culture. Much of that history was never preserved. The chronic, unpredictable violence that loomed over everyday Black life, dictating the movements and postures of white store owners and Black customers, is what sustained Jim Crow for over half a century. Conflating private and public authority and immunizing whites who served as its unofficial policemen, like the grocer, Jim Crow blurred the lines between formal law and informal enforcement. C. Van Woodward captured this in his 1955 classic, The Strange Career of Jim Crow. The Jim Crow laws put the authority of the state or city in the voice of the streetcar conductor, the railway brakeman, the bus driver, the hoodlum of the public parks and playgrounds. Although closely correlated with life in the postbellum South, Jim Crow took different forms across the country, embedded in culture, articulated in law, and entrenched in politics. Often portrayed as defining a strictly dualistic system with segregation on the one hand and integration on the other, Jim Crow was as pervasive in northern spaces where no signs demarcated racial positioning as it was in southern spaces where the races rubbed elbows but occupied different worlds. It was not so much tied to a geographical place as it was a national project, supported not just by the violence of the locals, but by a national legal system that endorsed and sustained a missionary commitment to a future of perpetual white rule. While researchers have examined the history of the Jim Crow regime and its contemporary footprint, particularly in the realm of criminal justice, the erasure of important parts of this narrative, Ollie Hunter's case and those like it, leaves us with crucial gaps in our understanding of the period. Using newspaper accounts, courtroom testimony, legislation, and judicial rulings, by hands now known, addresses those gaps. It seeks to illuminate how direct physical violence, a defining feature of Jim Crow, shaped the legal terrain in the South during the first half of the 20th century, transforming in fundamental ways concepts of federalism, citizenship, and democratic rights and privileges. Neither sporadic nor irrational, but rather inescapable and uncontrolled, the violence was a marker of legal personhood and freedom. Its ideologies and constructions of racialized masculinity, of Black pain, suffering, and silence, of color-coded public spaces, of Southern redemption, have endured into the present. As a uniquely American phenomenon, the mob violence that riddled the Southern landscape from Appomattox until World War II indubitably epitomized racial vulnerability. But the national obsession with lynching has also obscured the mundane, largely hidden violence that, while it lay at a different point on the spectrum, was equally essential to Jim Crow. Twice erased is the murder of Ollie Hunter, submerged seamlessly into the landscape of Southern life at the moment of her death, and then omitted brutally from historical accounts of the period. The early to mid-20th century was a critical period in solidifying white supremacy